Between the years of 1941 and 1943, the German general Erwin Rommel was immensely successful in North Africa, acquiring nicknames including the Desert Fox and the People's Marshal. He instilled fear in his enemies through vigorous tactics and caused allies to make little progress, and as a result moved quickly through the ranks, becoming close to Hitler. But what exactly was Erwin Rommel's role in World War II? Erwin Rommel's role in World War II began in 1940 when he became commander of the 7th Panzer Division. Rommel's forces led the German invasion of France with such speed that his division was later named the Ghost Division, and he became known as the Knight of the Apocalypse. During the 6-week campaign, Rommel's forces alone captured nearly 100,000 French prisoners and 450 enemy tanks, losing in the process less than 42 tanks. When Rommel returned home to Germany, his success was widely recognized, and he was promoted to lieutenant general. The next year in 1941, Rommel was sent by Hitler to North Africa due to Italian losses against the British and laid siege to the port city Tobruk from April to November. The long battle eventually led to the defeat of nearly 14,000 Australian troops within Tobruk. This victory was crucial for the Axis, as the port city had previously served as a defensive buttress for the Allies, forcing Axis units to bring most of their supplies overland from the port of Tripoli across 900 miles of desert. However, on December 5th, during Operation Crusader, after experiencing substantial losses to infantry and armor, the Allies successfully regained control of Tobruk when Rommel was forced to retreat to El Agheila due to equipment and supply shortages. In 1942, Rommel once again began building up his forces in preparation for a second offensive. In late May, both British and German forces were ready to initiate opposing offensive assaults. The Battle of Gazala began, in which British forces consisted of 175,000 men, 849 tanks, and 320 planes, of which 190 were serviceable. On the other hand, German forces only amounted to 90,000 men, 560 tanks, and 497 serviceable planes. The British had immensely favorable numbers. However, this did not last long, as British command failed miserably, with Commander Neil Ritchie in particular being almost always a day behind the battle and often relying on officers below him to take the initiative. Rommel, however, was at his best, commanding his armies from the front and responding swiftly to changing battle conditions. By the end of the battle, British forces had been wiped out, with only 285 of their original near 900 tanks. However, both sides did suffer heavy losses. German forces lost nearly half of their tanks as well. But the morale of the Germans was extremely high after overcoming the unfavorable odds, while British morale was at an all-time low due to their lack of confidence in their commanders. In June of 1942, Rommel successfully recaptured Tobruk, and as a result was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal, the highest rank in the army. Following his immense success at the Battle of Gazala, Rommel's next step in his campaign to conquer North Africa was Egypt. Despite German high command urging a pause, Hitler overruled them. This was a mistake. When Rommel advanced into Egypt, he was defeated at Al Halfa in September. As a result, Rommel began to create a minefield, knowing that a counterattack was soon to come. On October 23rd, in the Second Battle of El Alamein, the Allies attacked the Axis. This time, the Axis were at a severe disadvantage. British forces could nearly double the Axis' 100,000 men. In only 10 days, the Allies had crushed the Germans, and Rommel knew defeat was inevitable. However, Hitler sent a telegram instructing Rommel to, quote, stand and die. The message was received too late, as Rommel had already begun retreating. On November 4th, after the army had collapsed, Hitler gave the order to withdraw. Fast forward to 1944, where Rommel was reassigned to Northwest Europe to oversee the defense of the Atlantic coast. On June 6, 1944, a date which would become known as D-Day, some 156,000 American, British, and Canadian forces landed on 5 beaches along a 50-mile stretch of the heavily fortified coast of France's Normandy region. At the time, Rommel was on leave. Less than a week later, on June 11th, the beaches were fully secured by the Allies. Between Hitler's irrational decision-making in 1942 at the Second Battle of El Alamein and the defeat at Normandy, Rommel lost faith in the Third Reich and believed defeat was just around the corner. Rommel attempted to convince Hitler of this grave situation, and that surrender was the only reasonable option, but again, Hitler rejected this idea. Rommel planned with other German officers to disregard Hitler's decision and surrender, but before he could, Rommel was wounded in an air attack on July 17th. Then, on July 20th, an assassination attempt on Hitler revealed Rommel's association with the conspirators. Although Rommel was not aware of the attempt on Hitler's life, his defeatist attitude was enough to warrant Hitler's wrath. As a result, Hitler ordered that Rommel was to be given the option to either commit suicide via cyanide pill, or be put on trial for high treason and have his family be put at risk as well. After Rommel had been delivered the message by two generals who visited his home, Rommel said to his son, quote, "I shall be dead in a quarter of an hour. To die by the hand of one's own people is hard, but the house is surrounded and Hitler is charging me with high treason. I am to have the chance of dying by poison. I must go now. They've only given me 10 minutes. Rommel was then driven off in a car where he soon after committed suicide. His death was formally reported as a brain seizure, as Hitler had no interest in revealing to the public that Germany's most popular general was forced to commit suicide by their country's own leader. Rommel was given a state funeral. Unlike many other German generals during World War II, Rommel was not a Nazi, but merely a German officer who loved his country. His actions were not because of sympathy for the Nazi cause, but because of his immense sense of nationalism. Despite Rommel's success in North Africa and loyalty to Germany, he received a terrible fate from the same leader who once favored him over any other general.